a good weekend. I had one of the best weekends that I can remember. It was really nice. Some of the war band members and I, we got out and got to do some motor riding. All these places we like to ride have all opened up. The snow line is all the way up, and just had a really great time. I've been so enjoying my river plunges. Today I think was, today was something new. Today was the first day that the war band, we all got together and did our river plunge together this morning at 8 o'clock. And it was really fantastic. It's something that we are going to encourage to do every day. You know, I'm not making any promises. You know what they say? Do not promise. Who knows what's even going to happen tomorrow, so it's hard to forecast things. But all I know is that, Lord willing, the war band will be together again 8 o'clock in the morning for our 3-minute dip. It was really wonderful. My good friend Brian, who I think you might be seeing in future videos coming up, joined me in the Wim Hof. We did our Wim Hof breathing program. He had never done that before, and it's really wonderful. You know, I told him, I said, it was fun to have the three of us. It's the first time I ever did a cold water plunge or the river plunge with other men, without, not doing it by myself. And it was just so much better. The camaraderie that I'm looking forward to. You know, I was telling the guys, I said, I can see in the future where this might grow, that there might be other men joining us that would enjoy doing this. Even people might even be willing to drive out and come and be part of this, because, man, we have such a wonderful spot. It's such a blessing to have this river right here on our property, that I don't have to get in the car and go anywhere. And it's absolutely wonderful. I tell you, you know, the thing that the Lord has really been putting upon me is to be faithful, number one. I was praying the other day, and I just got this strong impression: be faithful, be faithful, be faithful. You know, and that is just something I've been thinking about all the time. It's important not to compromise, beloved. Even though everyone's telling you that you're wrong and that what your beliefs are and your standards are old-fashioned, that is not true. Hold the line, be faithful, be faithful, be faithful. Let us be counted as one of the elect, and I hope to see you in the kingdom someday. So the good Lord tells us this, that if you will confess your sins, if you will follow me, I promise you a couple things: that your life, not only are you going to have eternal life, and that you'll be able to be removed from this world of sin and pain and suffering, and to be forever with our Heavenly Father in the place that we were created to be. But I tell you that your life will be better on this realm as well. You know, there's so much to it. The war band and I have got together. We took a ride to the west of here, into the next major drainage, where there was a river about twice the size of the one right here, same temperature, pretty close, and we had a half-hour swim in there. We took Jack with us. That was the first time that he did the cold water plunge. It took him about 15 minutes. We were in there swimming around, trying to encourage him. Finally, he came in, and he had to admit that it was fantastic. So having my son doing that was wonderful as well. Just a great weekend. This morning, I think, was what, day 5? The first day that I started getting in the river in the mornings was the day after 4th of July. I think I mentioned it last week that we had a big party over. We had friends and family, and a couple of the war band members got in, and I didn't get in. It was late at night. You know, it was cold. Like, oh, I hadn't done it yet. I was so shamed that I got up the next morning, and that's when I started, and I've done it every day since. And I've been actually doing it 2 and even 3 times a day. Yesterday, the same thing will be today. This morning at 8, it's just a fabulous thing. Absolutely a fabulous thing. So another thing that we talked about, my group, that we wanted to do was we talked about doing, like the Aborigine people do, a walkabout. A walkabout is a time where you separate yourself from your community, from everything that you know, and you go out on your own with very minimal equipment, and you just spend some time figuring out what it is that you want, without the influence, without all of the distraction. Put yourself in a location with nothing, no electronics. And so what we decided to do, and we're putting together the plan right now, and there are 3 of us on board, probably 4. And the plan is we're going to pick a spot. that's going to be very, very secluded. We might even have a place where we have to take our motos in and then walk out at a certain distance. We're all going to do it at the same time, but we're all going to be separated, and we're not going to see each other. We'll kind of have a rough idea where the guys are, but it's a solitary trip. And on that trip, what it's going to be is it's going to be 7 days. And it's going to be 7 days of fasting. None of us are going to eat for 7 days. All we're going to do is drink water. I'm going to pick a place that's going to have a nice water supply so you can get into a pool and swim and enjoy that. As far as equipment goes, I'll take a wool blanket. I'll take a tent because I don't like insects, a small pack tent. I'll take a bushcrafting knife, maybe a little pack pole, pack rod. I'll take my Bible, and that'll basically be it. I'll probably take an emergency, satellite device where if I have a trouble, or I could, I could call Mrs. W or something to that effect. But I'm not gonna check phones. I'm not gonna have any of that, and I'm looking forward to it. And what we're trying to do, what the goal is the way life is changing and the world is changing so quickly, it's hard to know what to do. It really is. It's harder now to know what to do than anything. Jobs are not secure. With AI, what I saw AI, artificial intelligence, is capable of when I went to VidCon, it was terrifying and exciting at both times. And when we asked, where is this going to be in 6 months? Where's it going to be in 12 months? And here we had the foremost experts of the field, and they shrugged their shoulders and said, we don't know. We don't know who's going to have a job, who's not going to have a job. So as the warband is getting together and we're trying to make important decisions on how we can position ourselves and our families to do the best in the coming struggle, I came up with the idea that I need to really have some time to think about this and do some deep thinking, do some deep critical thinking. And I do not feel like I have the ability to do that with all of the influences in my home. As peaceful as it is, as much as we've tried to keep things, to make our home a sanctuary from the chaos of the world, even with that, I don't feel like I can do it. There's too much pull to the internet. There's just too much pull to all of the projects and things that I need to do. And that's when I came up with the idea of the 7-day walkabout. And I was going to do it by myself. And when I mentioned it to some of my friends, they wanted to do it as well. And one of the goals of doing this is to connect with God on a very personal level, free of influence, and to really come out of there with what it is that I want in life for my family. What do I want the next 25 years of my life to look like? And before I can make the decisions, important decisions, then I need to have a clear mind and clear thought. So I'm looking forward to that. So we're going to be picking the date and more on that in the future. Goodness, let me jump in here. We'll start off with a super chat. We have a super chat from Mr. Back Creek Homestead. Thank you, brother. It was very generous of you. $20. Kicking it off. Thank you, brother. He says, hope you're having a good day. Always enjoy the live stream. I haven't had a better day for a long time. I'll tell you, beloved, even my son this morning, I've got some fun videos for you coming up. When I came in after my cold water dip with my friends and my friend Brian, we did the Wim Hof breathing together and just had some nice conversations and talking. I was so focused and so excited about life, more excited than I have been for a long time. It's very similar to the way that I felt and just the general feeling of well-being that I had when I first started doing cold showers, as many of you remember. And what are we, day 5 or day 6 into this? It is incredible. It is incredible. It's one of the best things I've ever done. And doing it in the river is so much better than the shower. I think that if I had to give you advice on if you wanted to get started with it, what I would do is I'd probably go buy a stock tank or go buy a chest refrigerator, and I would do something that was fully immersed versus the shower. If the shower is all you have, that's good as well. I received a lot of benefits from that, but there's something different about complete submersion that is, it just seems to be on a whole nother level, and it's easier. I think the consistency of the cold water being completely submerged versus having it sprinkling on you makes it easier. It is. There isn't any question about that. We have a member message from the Great Lakes man. Shout out to you, who writes, I just had Florida man come honking down my driveway to demand to sell 2 of my laying hens at a cut rate price. This Midwest man finds Florida man so strange. You know, Florida man is he is a different breed of cat. Certainly, I can speak on this with authority. I did spend a year living in Florida, and I'll tell you, no one suffered like I did in Florida. A Pacific Northwest man, a native, does not do well in that climate. The humidity, the oppressive heat, the East Coast, it's completely overrun by East Coast man. I mean, East Coast man goes and retires down in Boca, so he's all over the place, and so you can't get away from him. The poor quality food in restaurants, the poor quality of produce, the and the critters, the fire ants, the no-see-ums, the alligators, the stingrays, everything about it was absolutely horrible. And I don't think I'll ever go back to it. So the fact that Florida man could even exist in that environment, it surprises me. And I think it must be the heat that just makes him soft in the head and makes him go a little bit crazy. I don't know why. I don't know. But shout out to Florida man, because he's a tougher than a boot to live in that environment. I couldn't hack it. I made it a year and I was out of there as quick as I could get. We have a member message from my 12521252. Shout out to you. Welcome back. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Man, I'm feeling so good. I'm about to spin off this chair right now. I just couldn't be more excited. 1252-152. I got that wrong. Right. It's pretty amazing seeing Jesus call his people forward and apart from this dying world. Boy, isn't it something? It is. It's manifesting. It is so true, man. I have been, my prayer life as of late has been stronger than it has been in a long time. And the peace and relief that I have received over this weekend, over really the last 5 days or so of being in the cold water, and also it helps to have some good friends that I trust around me that are on the same page as well. You know, that don't discount that. From the time when COVID started and the lockdowns, I've always been somewhat preparedness-minded, and I like to be able to handle situations. I don't want to be the guy that needs to rely upon someone else to get him out of a jam. So it's always been my nature. But when we were all scared, you know, that really got ratcheted up. I felt like I really went into the fight or flight mode. It's an intensity that is good to have. It helps you escape danger, but it's not something that you can maintain for a long time. Imagine trying to spray nitrous into your engine. Yes, you're going to get a tremendous boost or an increase of horsepower, and there's nothing wrong with that, and it helps you to win races, get out of trouble, what have you, but it's not something you can use all the time. If you continue to spray that all the time, it will eventually destroy your engine. It's just not sustainable. And after this fight or flight, you know, trying to prepare my family, trying to account for any situation that I might find myself in, I found getting to the point where it's just mentally and physically exhausting, and it's not something that I can maintain. And I thought, goodness, you know, how can you prepare for everything? And just when you think you've got things pretty well handled, the world changes, something else changes, and you've got to pivot and look at another direction. And the thing that I've realized this week, and it's been really eye-opening to me, has been, you know, you can't. You simply can't, and it's pointless to try to, and it will make you crazy if you continue down this road. The only way, beloved, that we're going to make it through this coming struggle, whatever that may be, is going to be trusting God. Yes, we have to partner with him. Noah had to build an ark. Could God have saved him through the flood? Yes, he could have. But Noah had to partner with God to save himself and his family. And once I really came to that conclusion and spent a lot of time praying and meditating on that these last few days, this weekend especially, a great relief has come upon me. A great, like I put down a burden. Excited, super excited for the future. Super excited that God has found us, called us, found us to be worthy, to be doing work for him, to spreading the gospel. And I also went back and started reading got back into the Bible and started reading some of the stories of God interacting with flawed men to further his cause. And it just helped me to remember that God uses flawed people. You think sometimes that you need to arrive, you need to get yourself cleaned up, you need to become a better man before God could have anything to do with you, but that is not the case. I'm not saying that you should go forward and just be breaking God's law and putting no effort into it, not spending time in prayer and trying to be a better person, trying to receive the Holy Spirit. What I'm saying is this, is that God will use the least of men to do his work. And he does that for a reason. And that reason is this, so that we don't take credit for it ourselves. When I look at myself in the mirror and I think back of my past and the way I've treated people and my pride and my arrogance, and it's worse for me sometimes when I think that I have tasted the goodness of God, I have tasted true peace, I've known who he is, and even after I've known him, I've not walked in his ways, turned from him like a dog returning to its vomit. But the thing we've got to do is the difference between the extraordinary man and the ordinary one is the extraordinary man admits his faults, he picks himself up, and he continues down the path. That's the difference. Even if you've fallen down, if you've fallen away, that doesn't mean that that was your only chance. Get back on it and keep going. That's the thing. It's very exciting, very exciting. We have a live chat from Mr. P. Gladosphere. Shout out to you, brother. P writes, are you doing anything to prepare for the solar storm? No, I'm not. No, what can I do? We have the promises of God. He told us that he knows what we have need of before we even ask. He says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Which one of you can change your height? Which one of you can change the color of your hair? Do we have control over a solar flare? Do we have control over an EMP? Do we have control over a tornado or a hurricane or a structure fire that might burn down our house and everything that we've laid up and prepared for the last decade? We have no control over that. These things happen outside of our control. Sufficient is the day for the evil therein, the good book tells us, meaning that you focus on what you can deal with today. You focus on getting in the river and spending time in prayer and just not falling off the wagon, not breaking God's commandments the best you can, and that's enough for you to worry about. He'll take it from there. So, it's crazy making. The adversary is throwing things at us just faster and faster, trying to keep you on the back foot, trying to keep you off balance, trying to make you question your decisions, question your faith, question your morality. Just forget all about that. Focus on what you can do right now. Whose life can you affect that's right in front of you? How can you make someone's burden a little bit easier that might be at work? How can you love your neighbor as yourself? In other words, carry another man's burden right now, today, here. That's what I focus on. And that's how you get peace. That's how you get happiness. Now, there should be an to preparedness. We have to do things. We can't just sit around and wait for God to drop everything into our lap. He wants us to take a step. Sometimes you have to take a step forward in faith, and it's scary. But we have to take that step, and he'll compensate for it. I don't give two hoots about solar flares or any of this. As far as I know, it is a lie from the adversary. It is just one more thing to try to get you to worry and to keep you off balance. And what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? You're going to stand out with a tinfoil and I couldn't care less. What I'm going to do after this live stream is I'm going to go down there and I'm going to cut firewood. That's what I'm going to do. So I don't care. I don't care. If it's God's will that this family is taken out by a solar flare, then so be it. It would be the greatest blessing of all time. Wake up in the presence of the Almighty. We have a live chat from Shooter Zed. Shout out to you, Shooter. Shooter writes, what kind of watches do you wear? Well, I rotate through about 4 different watches. I have, I can't think of the name of it. I have a Hamilton Khaki. It's automatic or a manual wind. I have a Seiko Tuna. I have a Marathon SR, made in Canada, Swiss Movement. I have a Rolex Explorer, and I have a Garmin Phoenix Sapphire, like electronic watch. or smartwatch. Goodness, we have a $49 super chat from our friend, Mr. Tim Caldwell. Thank you, Tim. It's great. Thank you for your faithfulness. I really appreciate it. It's always good to see Tim in the chat. Tim says, native Florida man here. I am tired of Florida, thinking Midwest or even Tennessee. I get that, man. It's tough out there. Tennessee is in my future. Loving the Wranglerstar radio package. Please keep us in your prayers as you are journeying for a closer relationship with God and clarity for the events unfolding around us. I will be praying for you earnestly, beloved. I will be. The war band also, another thing that we all agreed to do is that we're going to start a 1 week fast. We might probably most likely turn this into something that we do regularly for some time. So this coming Sabbath, from Sabbath evening, that'd be sunset, Friday evening, to Saturday evening sunset, the war band in solidarity is going to be fasting and praying. Praying for you guys, for your families, praying for the church, praying for our own families, but really for faith and wisdom and understanding and insights. I'd like to see God is opening up His Word, and I'm reading and discovering things that I have read many, many times that I've never considered before. I'll tell you know what, something interesting. I have a friend, I'm not going to mention his name, but he's been away for some time with his family, traveling all over the world. When COVID started, he took a little different tact. He sold everything that they had, and they went on the road. And then once they traveled overland for a while, they sold their overland equipment that they build, and they went over to Europe and all over to Southeast Asia. And there's 5 of them in their family. They have little kids. And they just got back, and we invited them over for supper and really enjoyed having them there. And they shared all of the stories and everything that had happened and how God had worked in their life. You know, we're very similar. We're coming full circle. It was so fascinating. Him and I sat down here until way late at night, discussing our experiences over the last year, because it's been a year or so since we'd seen each other. And it was incredible, the similarities and how our way of thinking, our thought processes, what's important to us, what we want to do for the future, were very much in line, almost in complete harmony. It was very encouraging to one another. I was sharing with him what I had discovered about the cold water, and I texted him this morning, invited him to join the war band, and he said, "Oh, that's funny." He says, "I'm actually have brought my family down to the local." They're about 45 minutes, staying 45 minutes here from us. I brought my family down to the local river, and we're doing it this morning. So he adopted that. I shared with him my experience of getting grounded and getting my shoes off, and the natural clothing. He'd come to the same conclusion, even though that we had not been together, really communicated, because they've been so far away. He brought up something that was so insightful that I hadn't considered about the importance of taking your shoes off. He said, something that is true about doing that is it forces you to slow down. Forces you to slow down. And that hit me when he said that. And I've thought about that, and I brought that really brilliant insight to the war band this morning, and I shared that with them as well. And that's very profound, and it's absolutely true. And what I mean by that is, you see me when I'm doing the irrigation or I'm working outside. If possible, I'm always in bare feet, and it indeed has slowed me down. You don't rush into things when you're barefoot. If there's rocks or sharp items or dry grass, you know how it gets. You're very careful and very deliberate with foot placement. Same goes for the shop. There's always little rocks and things around, and you're very deliberate. And I've noticed that I am much more deliberate with my actions. I'm much more, when I walk and I go to somewhere, I'm very intentional, and it's a lot slower. I'm not just running into everything. When you have big, heavy, clunky boots on, you don't even think about that. You just run in there and you're kicking stuff around and you're working and moving fast. I enjoy that aspect of it. And that's a benefit that has been very noticeable in my life that I had never considered before. And thank you, Tim. I will be praying for you, and I agree. With all Florida, I think you should probably get out of Florida as well. North Carolina, maybe even Tennessee. We have some friends that have moved to Tennessee, some that have moved to North Carolina. not because they wanted to leave this area, but because it's just priced them out. If you don't have, if you're not making a lot of money, the property values out west have just went crazy. And if you aren't already in, it's kind of hard to get started. So what they're finding is that they can sell what they have and buy so much more over there in those states, and some of them are doing that. So thank you, Tim. Thank you for your generosity as well. Goodness. We have a member message from our friend, Mr. Dave Knott. Shout out to you. Dave writes, welcome back. The Fizz Factory has been upholding Fellowship Q. What's your big picture overview of the season work and leisure before fall, winter? For me personally, I got so much to share with you. So this morning, some of you know my friend Brian. He's one of my best and closest friends. He used to work for me at the old homestead. He's a wonderful man. We were getting ready to go riding. I don't think he'll mind me sharing this with you. We were getting ready to go on a moto ride. This was Sunday. Yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. So he ran over to get his stuff, and he said, "Kay, can you help me put a new chain?" He rides that XR, that older XR 250. He got a new X chain. Can you help me put a chain on? Mine's pretty worn out before we go on a ride. And I said, "Oh yeah, come on over. We'll get that knocked out." So he ran over there to grab the parts, and I was getting stuff ready. And he came back and he said, "Well, looks like I'm going to have a lot more time on my hands to do things." And I said, "Oh yeah, why is that?" And he said, "Well, I just got notification that my job has ended, that my services are no longer needed. No notification or anything." And well, I was shocked, because I know where he works. I actually know the guy he works for, and Brian's a good man. He would never do anything. He's not the guy that would get fired. He's a high quality man. I said, I'm sorry to hear that. How do you feel about that? And he said, I don't really know yet, So we went ahead and went on a ride and just had a wonderful day and went over and spent about a half hour in the river, swimming and doing the cold water. And we came out and we were sitting on the rocks, just kind of visiting a little bit, drying off and warming up a little bit. And we had a really nice conversation about the future. What does that mean for him and what does he want to do? This morning, he came over and at 8 o'clock with some of the other guys. And after we did the cold water plunge, not everybody could stay. They had to leave and get to work and do some things. But him and I remained, and we did the Wim Hof breathing together. And afterwards, I asked him, I said, so you had 24 hours to think about this. What is it that you want to do? Have you thought about that? I said, the job that you had previously was, he's good at coding and he's really good with computers and such. Previous to that, he was working from home and just working on a computer, doing that sort of thing. The job that he had just left or that ended, he was doing more manual labor, more working with the hands type of thing. I said, you've had the opportunity to do both. With that, what do you think you want to do next? What do you want to pursue? He took so long to answer me, I thought he didn't hear me. And I was about to repeat the question, and he spoke up and he said, I've always wanted to hand-make knives. He's not I wouldn't say he's a proficient blacksmith, but I'd say he's competent. He's better than I am, much better than I am. He goes, I've always wanted to make handmade knives from scratch, the old way, forged. And I listened to that, and the thought came into my mind, and I said, well, you've got a little time right here. I said, what would you say if we got the big anvil and we got the forge and we brought it down here to the creek right next to where I've got my carpenter bench over there where the sawmill was. We bring it down here. We set up basically a small blacksmithing shop, and you come down here and you start forging and you start making some knives. And I will, if you want to, I will shoot some video on that, on what you're creating, and maybe even you could show us a few tips and tricks. And when you're done with it, if you're happy with it, you think it's good enough, maybe one of the subscribers or someone would want to buy that. And maybe you could start doing that professionally as a business and handmade the old way from scratch. And he said, I'd like that. And he said, when? I said, well, why not now? So I said, here's what we'll do. we walked over there, and right behind us, right over there is where it's going to be. We walked over there, and I said, what do you think about right here? What do you think about this area, and how would this look? And we spent about 15 minutes and came to the conclusion of what we're going to do, and we're going to bring the old man down here. We're going to bring the big anvil. I am confident. I think I found a nice big wall tent, a 14 by 16 used on Facebook Marketplace that I agreed to the price. I'm just waiting to hear back on that. We'll set that up, and we'll have to the left, right behind me here, to the left we'll have my carpenter bench, and to the right Brian is going to start forging handmade knives, and then we'll set that inside the tent so he can be out of the sun and all that, and we'll see what happens. You know, and I don't think any one of us are looking at this to be a full-time business for him or a full-time job, but if it turns into that, then that's what it may be. So who knows what God's plan is, but I'm looking forward to that. So when we end this stream, I might have to end a little bit early. Brian's coming over, and we're going to bring the anvil down, and we're going to get set up, and he's going to start forging. And that really put a desire in me to get back. There's a lot of woodworking projects that I've wanted to get back into. And how nice is it going to be for us two friends to be able to have, it's like an old school village, right? We have the carpenter making carpenter things, and the blacksmith making blacksmith things right next to each other. And maybe I make handles for him or help him out with the wood side of it, because I'm a little bit better with the woodworking than he is, and he's better at the metalworking than I am. And who knows what might become of that. But it's going to be wonderful. We'll be able to come down and do our early 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock dip down here. And, you know, I told him, if we're tough enough, if we can handle it, you know, maybe we just do this, we do the river dip every day. Maybe we do make a commitment to each other to do this for a year, even through the winter time. I'm excited about that. So I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I'll share that with you. Provided he wants to do video on that, and I think that he would. So that's something I'm looking forward to, and we should have it kind of set up. I don't know when the tent's going to come. We're going to have to get the platform and stuff built up, but if I can get that tent here this week, it could happen real quickly. So that's exciting. We have a live chat from Mr. Todd Kennington. Shout out to you, Todd. Todd writes, I love the video about your angry mom not teaching you. I was raised that way. Well, my mom wasn't angry. I think I was talking about, I was commiserating with those of you who have had mean-faced, angry old single mothers that ran your dad off and subjected you to being raised in a single-parent family, which is a great disadvantage. I think that's what I was talking about. But thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that. Mr. Great Lakes Man, welcome back. Thank you, brother. Thank you for your generosity. He writes, there is no better environment for contemplation and self-reflection than a remote wilderness. It's true. I find mine on a canoe trip near the Canadian border. I wish you well on your walkabout. Yeah, that's very true. You know, there's precedence that in the good book when Jesus started his ministry. He went out on walkabout himself. He went out for 40 days and 40 nights, and he fasted. He didn't eat anything. And when he was in his, the good book tells us, that's when the adversary came and tempted him, 3 temptations. When he was after that, it seems to me that Jesus knew he was about to face the most difficult challenge of his life. And he also knew that if he were to face it on his own, under his own power, without help from God, and without absolute clarity of thought, then he might not be able to do it. I don't know. I don't have a scripture for this. I'm speculating, but it seems to me to be the case. This, beloved, is an example unto us. When I thought about that and contemplated on that this weekend and made my own decision to do a 7-day walkabout, fasting, alone, in a wilderness area, completely alone, that's where I got that from. When I've got important decisions to make, and we all have important decisions to make coming up for the next year or so, I want to make sure that I'm not making these decisions with my own intellect, with my own ability, because I don't trust it. I don't trust it because I have failed so many times. I have went forward thinking that I had a mandate from God, I was acting under his will, only to find out years later that He never wanted me to do that. And had I listened, had I got out of my own pride and ego, then I could have avoided a lot of mistakes. But that's the way we grow, beloved. There's nothing wrong with it. God would have us move upward in a straight line trajectory, the straightest line. But we don't work that way because we're stiff-necked and we're stubborn and we're prideful. Our upward progression is a stair step, more like this, more up and downs. A stair step wouldn't be so bad to go up and to go horizontal for a while and continue up. You know, I do this. Sometimes it's one step forward and two steps back. So in this important time in life, I want to make sure that I'm partnering with God and using that resource that He's given me, His Holy Spirit, so that I'm making good decisions. I don't want to fail anymore. I don't want to waste any more time. Time is short. I don't have a lot of time left. You know, I'm 54 now. I want to make sure that the decisions I make are going to be the best they could possibly be, and I don't trust myself and I trust Him. So the walkabout, there is a precedent for that. You know, that term wasn't used in the good book, but that's what he did. And it wasn't just the one time either. When he would go into a city, he was mobbed with hundreds or thousands of people surrounding him, vying for his attention. I can only imagine how exhausting that is. I can somewhat relate. When Mrs. W and I used to go do the Mother Earth News Fair, I was a keynote speaker, and there were a lot of people that would show up. And sometimes we would have book signings. We had book signings that would be 3 and 4, maybe not 4, 3 hours long. You know, people had driven, some people would drive 8 and 10 hours and bring their families just to come and stand in line for 3 hours, just to have 60 seconds or so, or 90 seconds to visit and to meet Mrs. W and I and have their book signed. And it was one of the most humbling things I've ever experienced. I felt so bad that folks would take their busy time and drive hours and hours to come and stand in line to do that, and I felt ashamed that I didn't have more time to give, that I couldn't give more to show my appreciation for that and how much that meant to me. But there was a long line and there were other people behind them, and there was only so much time, and sometimes you only had less than a minute. It was a hard thing to do. And afterwards, and I also, when I was in that situation, I tried to focus all of my attention on the conversation that I was having with these folks, even though it was only short. But I wanted to make sure that I was listening, that I was hearing them, that I was giving 100% of my attention. That was at least the least thing I could do to show my respect to someone that came and did that because they wanted to share a story or share an experience with me and Mrs. W. And then afterwards, we'd leave. There would be a throng of people around and people wanting to talk, and then we would go into that, to a meet and greet, sometimes at a restaurant, and there would be several hundred people there, and the same, that intensity of staying focused on listening to people and giving their attention and trying to make sure that no one left without at least having an opportunity to speak with them. I'll tell you, at the end of that, I've never experienced physical and mental exhaustion like that, both of us. I remember each time where sometimes it'd be 8, 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock at night. Mrs. W and I would pull away and retreat from that and just be sitting together in a booth, you know, getting something to eat because neither one of us had eaten all day, hadn't had anything to eat. And how tiring that was. And can you imagine if you had to do that for 2 days or 3 days or for a week? Well, that's what our Lord had to do. You know, He was strong, but much greater. You know what? This was small potatoes, what I'm talking about, compared to the exhaustion that He had to go through. And He, at the end of that, and let's also clarify right away, I'm not making a comparison with our Savior. I'm not making that comparison. All I'm saying is I have, in a small, tiny way, I can relate to what that must have been like. I can be somewhat sympathetic. That's all I'm saying. I'm not making a comparison here whatsoever. There are none righteous, no, not one. All have fallen short of the glory of God. But when He was done with that, He often retreated to a quiet place or retreated to the wilderness. Even so secluded was He and so secret was it that even His disciples didn't know where He was at. He didn't even want them to know Why did he do that? Why was that important for him to do? Excuse me. So much was drained out of him that he had to go back and reconnect with the Father. He had to spend time in prayer and fasting and re-energizing, recharging his batteries so that he could go to the next town and do it over again, do it again. So there is a precedent, beloved, for this, to get some time out. And this 7 days that we've chosen, this is just an arbitrary number. It doesn't mean anything. I'm not suggesting that this is something that all Proho needs to do. I'm just telling you that this is an avenue that might be smart for you to do. It might be 24 hours. It might be 12 hours. It might be going out somewhere that you like to go, or a canoe ride like we just read, or something, your favorite place, to get away for a weekend. I think a weekend would be attainable for most guys. To get up there, leave the phone, just take the bare essentials, take the word, take a wool blanket, take some water, and give it a go. We're going to do it. I'm coming out publicly and stating it. There's accountability here, and the war band's doing it with me, and I'm excited for it. When? We're going to have to work around everyone's schedule. I would imagine probably maybe August or so. We have a super chat from Ice Cream Paint JB. Shout out to you, brother. Thank you. Thank you for your generosity. $20 super chat. Goodness. He says, all it takes is seeking. I won't get into specifics, but I emerged from the darkness the moment I allowed myself to work with and for God. The book is the basis of all. Each page a diamond lance dipped in ancient truth. Isn't that the truth, man? And more so than ever. This morning, I knew I was going to get in the water at 8 o'clock. In the week, I haven't got in the water that early because it's been cool. It's always cool in the morning. We live in the mountains. Even though it's summertime, it's July. It's still chilly in the morning and windy. So I've waited until it got good and hot, 10, 11 o'clock or so, and then get in. Well, I woke up and I looked out the window and it was howling wind and the temperature was pretty low. And I was starting to feel sorry for myself, right? I felt the need to murmur and complain a little bit. But I knew the war band was also waking up and having the same thought, and I knew that they would be there. And my mind went to the book of the story of Joshua as the children of Israel entered into the promised land. There was a town, or a big city, a massive city, named Jericho. And it was a walled city. Huge walls. I don't remember how high, but super high. Maybe 100 feet high. Impenetrable. God told the children of Israel, what I want you to do is I want you to go and once a day I want you to march around this city. Walk around it. All of them. And I want you to do that for a week, 7 days. But the important part that came to me is I want you to keep your mouth shut. I don't want to hear a word. Don't murmur. Don't complain. Don't talk to your neighbor. Don't do nothing. Keep your mouth shut and walk around that city. Day 1. Day 2. Day 3. Is anything happening? Day 4. Do you think if God wouldn't have told them to hold their peace, do you think there would have been murmuring among the men? Maybe some complaining. Well, you know it. You know how our nature is, right? We whinge and complain when we don't get what we want right away. God also knew that once that murmuring and that complaining started, it would sow dissension among the group. And pretty soon morale would be down, and they probably would just give up. Say, well, we tried it for 3 or 4 days, and it's pointless. Hot, desert, sandals, walking around. City was so big, didn't take a day to walk around it. I don't remember exactly. I got to go back and read it now. But he told them that because he knew that the moment they start complaining and start that negative talk, that thinking, stinking, that they're stinking thinking, that it would unravel the whole thing and it would all be, that men would lose hope and lose faith. It just starts with one, the rotten apple in the barrel. And I thought to myself, why did this come into my head so clearly? Why is God bringing this to my attention? Well, it was because I was looking and searching for a reason not to get in that cold water at 8 o'clock. And what would have happened had I walked down here and immediately started whinging and whining and complaining about it? Would I have affected the other men? What if they would have started complaining? So when everyone started coming and filing in, I shared with them the story. I told them the story of Joshua and the walls of Jericho and how they fell and how God commanded them to keep silent. And I told them, you're not going to hear me ever complain about what we're doing here. I don't care if it's 31 degrees. I don't care if we have to break ice and get in this water. I'm not going to be murmuring or complaining because I'm not going to start that. And I would encourage you not to do that as well. This is what we do. We've put our hand on the plow, and this is what we do. And there's no point of complaining about it. Yes, it's cold. Yes, it's terrible. So what? It doesn't make any difference. We've been weak and complaining and given up. How many times have we given up right before a great blessing could have come to us because we lost faith? We couldn't see the future. And so because we couldn't see the future, we gave up. Another story that just came into my mind is about Naaman the Syrian. Naaman was a great leader. He was a great military man of the Syrian people. This would have been in the Old Testament. But he had a real serious problem. He had leprosy. Now in those days, if you had leprosy, you were exiled from your community. They believed it was contagious, and the moment it appeared upon you, you were immediately exiled, regardless of your station. Even if it was the king. If the king were to wake up and be leprous, he would have been driven out of the palace because people were terrified of them. People hated them so much, were so concerned about them, that they even had to wear, have a noisemaker of some sort as they traveled in Rome from town to town. Can you imagine the existence, a nomadic leper that everyone hated and despised? A pariah among the society. That they would have to have a bell or a noisemaker, and they would have to shout, "Unclean, unclean," if ever another man or woman came in their presence, to warn them as to stay away from this reviled and pitiful creature. Well, Naaman was the right-hand man to the Syrian king, beloved and trusted. Naaman, the king, was unwilling to exile Naaman. He loved him too much. He was too valuable to him, and he let him stay on and remain an important advisor, and I believe he was a general for the Syrian, even though he had leprosy. Well, in Naaman's house was a young Jewish girl that had been captured from the children of Israel, and she had been made a housekeeper or a servant. And she loved Naaman and loved the family. Naaman obviously was a righteous man. He treated her well, even though she was not of his tribe. And she told Naaman that there was a prophet of God that might have the ability to heal him of his leprosy, if he would only just go and talk to him. And so Naaman was willing to try anything. Anything. Would you not try anything? Is there any stone you leave unturned? Is there anything you wouldn't sacrifice if you could cure yourself of a loathsome and hateful disease? So he went to the Syrian king and he explained this, and I'm paraphrasing here. I may get things wrong. I'll have to go back and read the story. I'm giving you the essence of it. He went to his boss. He went to the Syrian king, and he said, "Would you give me leave to go and to visit this man of God? He may, who knows, maybe be able to cure me of this loathsome disease." The king was very enthused. "Go, absolutely. And not only that, let me give you treasure and changes of clothing and great wealth that you can give as an offering to this man." So that's what Naaman did. He traveled, found out where the man of God lived, and went there and knocked on his door and inquired. The man of God, the prophet of God, went down to the water, and he told Naaman. And here Naaman, let's look at the contrast here. Naaman is a man of great wealth, very important man, of the Syrian king, which dominated the children of Israel at that time. And here we have this poor, wretched man of God, the prophet of man, living in this little stone shack. You know, a great contrast of very poor and very wealthy. A very, what's the word I'm looking for? Exalted and a very low. This man of God tells Naaman, They're at the waterfront. Go down and dip yourself in the water. And Naaman's thinking, how many times have I went down and dipped myself in the water? I've never been cured of leprosy. But he did it. He had to swallow some pride to do that. Can you imagine? Came back out. He's still white with leprosy. The man of God says, go down and dip in the water again. He does it again. Comes back out, still white with leprosy. Starting to lose hope. Starting to lose faith. A third time. A fourth time. A fifth time. Comes out still white, leprous white. The murmuring, the complaining, the fault finding, the doubt. Can you not imagine how it came screaming into his consciousness? Who is this Hebrew telling me, a Syrian, is he making fun of me? Is he taking me for a fool? Can you even imagine? He began to doubt. He didn't want to do it. If memory serves, he was about to quit. And I believe it was one of his servants said, Lord, you've come all this way. Will it hurt you just to do what he says? Just do what he says. Who knows? Swallow your pride. Swallow your ego. Stop complaining. Stop murmuring. Just do what he said. A sixth time. Nothing. Seventh time, if I remember, comes out. He's clean. Free of leprosy. Nothing. Completely healed. The moral, the point of that story is, had Naaman given in to everything that was screaming at him to give up, would he have received that great blessing? He would have left as leprous as he came. The point being, beloved, sometimes God's going to ask us or require something of us that we don't receive a result directly. And because we don't receive the result directly, we think that he's not there, or there's not going to be a blessing in it. The word that I am hearing is be faithful, be faithful, be faithful, beloved. Be faithful, be faithful, be faithful. 3 times. Meaning trust in God. No matter how you see whatever your situation is, move forward, unflinching. Once you've determined what it is, the direction that you want to go, the leading of God, then you move forward. You put your hand to that plow and you turn your face like a flint towards it. And you turn not to the left and you turn not to the right until you see it through. And all of these things are in my mind and in my thoughts as we plan for the walkabout for the 7 days, so that we can make sure that when we decide to go this particular direction, to turn our face like a flint towards the will of God, that we have given God every opportunity and ourselves free of as many distractions as possible, so that we can see clearly and receive clearly the guidance of God's Spirit. We have a super chat from Stouffer. Shout out to you, brother. Thank you very much. Appreciate your faithfulness. And Mr. R. Rowe, thank you as well. Welcome, welcome. Mr. David Knott, we have a super chat. David writes, to your excitement with Brian, this morning I listened to Mel Robbins on adult summer camp, and to live a life encouraging and bringing in friends. Yes, beloved, don't be surprised if you haven't already been convicted of something similar. It may not be the same thing, probably won't be, but similar like it. God's Spirit is being poured out on his people. Who's going to respond? He's looking for soldiers. I've told you guys for months now that God brought that image of Gideon, the story of Gideon, and how he whittled down the army to 300 loyal and faithful men that he knew would not break and run when they went up against that great multitude, that great army. God needs people that are unwilling to compromise, that have the courage of a Daniel, the courage of David, the courage of a lion. I've told you, if the men that were not able to be strong enough to stand up in the face of the pressure of the vaccination and of the whole COVID debacle, then they're not strong enough to see themselves and their families through the end times. It was as if the testing of Gideon was done to us here in this world. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He says, I changeth not. So the way he interacted with men in the days of old to the fathers is going to be the way that he tests and behaves with us. albeit circumstances are different. The underlying point and the what he's looking for as far as the truth and character and the unwillingness to compromise on what you know to be true is what God is looking for in his army. And his army is not an army of violence or death or destruction. His army, we fight not against that. I'm not advocating violence. Our war, our battle is a spiritual battle. Don't be surprised if you are receiving something similar to what I'm talking about. If you've been convicted of the importance of having a digital detox from the things that are distracting all of us. I'm on board. I'm preaching to myself. I'll never preach to you, beloved. I preach to all of us. We're all in the same boat here. We're at the King Arthur's round table. There is no head. There is no foot. There is not one of us more important than the other. God does not look upon the outward appearance of man. We do. I notice it. I am in a different situation than I was 10 years ago. I wear better clothing. I live in a bigger home. I drive a nicer truck. All these things were a manifestation of that. I'm not saying that I should have did it. I'm just saying this is what I did. But I have seen the way that I'm treated. I'm treated now compared to when I had nothing. And it just, like it or not, you get more respect. People want to hear what you have to say, even though what you have to say may not be any different than it was before. Man looks upon the outward appearance. God does not. So don't look upon another man who may have more than you, or judging by the world's standards might be elevated above your station in life. God cares nothing for that. Actually, he says, how hard is it for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God? He even tells us that you're putting yourself at a disadvantage if you can be if you gain great wealth, because you'll find that you no longer have need of me. Your trust and your faith, your God will become the love of money. God looks upon the heart. He sees what's inside. He's no respecter of persons. He doesn't care if you're minimum wage or if you're six figures. We have a super chat from Mr. Lenny, 213. Shout out to you, Lenny. Lenny writes, am I wrong to question my commitment to our church? We are devoted Catholics, but I feel the church is not aligned with our values. I would love your advice and guidance. God bless you and your family. I don't have to tell you that you're in the wrong situation. We can look to the Word. What does God say? How will you know the true people of God? How will you know that a preacher is true? How will you know a pastor, an evangelist, a priest? You will know them by what? You will know them by their fruits. What are their fruits? What is the result of what they did? What is the result of their life? You take two trees, two cherry trees. One is laden with fruit. You're enjoying it. One is not. You know which one's better. Well, the one with the cherries, right? What is the fruit of the Catholic Church? What are they known for? What have you seen with your own eyes? How does the Catholic Church handle pedophile priests? Do they admonish them? Do they excommunicate them? Or do they ship them off to another parish? You will know them by their fruits. So you know my stance, beloved, on the Catholic Church. I don't need to go into it every time. I don't need to repeat myself over and over again. That's the litmus test. That's how you judge it. So you're going to need to act accordingly. You're going to have to, all of us are going to have to take a hard look at everything that we've believed to be true about. We're going to have to take a hard look at our dogmas and understand that, and really come to the conclusion of, why do I believe what I do? Is it because I know it to be true? Is it because I have discovered this through study and prayer? Or is it because that's what my parents did or my grandparents, or that's what's convenient? Or it's a lot of work to have to go find another church? Is it out of sheer laziness and atrophy? You got to ask yourself this question. Beloved, there's not going to be any coattails in the kingdom. You're not going to ride in on the coattails of your righteous grandmother or your parent who showed you the way. Every man will give an account to his deeds. Every one of us will stand at the judgment seat, and you will be judged according to your works. It's a frightful and fearful thing. There won't be any excuses. As your life is played out in front of you, there will be no denial that you did not do everything that you could have done. You did not react positively to the urging of the Holy Spirit, even though He strove and walked with you for a lifetime. There will be many people and many surprises. There'll be many people that wake up in the kingdom that didn't go to church. There'll be many people that went to church that do not wake up in the kingdom. That will say, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not do all these things? Did we not sit in the pews and tithe and sing the songs? Did we not do everything to give the appearance that we were righteous Christians? What does He say? Get away from me, I don't even know who you are. Can you imagine the disappointment? Mr. Y125-21252, we have a $20 super chat. Thank you, beloved, for your generosity. I really do appreciate that. He says, this is for you to help Brian. I would like to place an order for a copy of the Winkler Tomahawk. Been a fan of the Terminal List books for years now. Thank you for being an example in loving your neighbor like yourself. I appreciate that, and I will get that to him. I love Brian like a brother. You know, I'll tell you, I was thinking about, there's a term that has come up recently that I've never heard before, all over online, and it's zero contact. Zero contact is family and friends that you were once close to, no longer having contact with them. This is a term. And I, like you, saw many people for who they truly are by how they reacted during the COVID debacle. And there are people that have been very close friends of mine, and even intimate, close family, that I have no contact with anymore for these reasons. And I've been sad about this. This has been something that has been weighing upon my heart, and I know that we're just, in the end times, God's people are not going to be compatible with those that are not of our belief. God tells us, you're with me or you're against me. You have to make a decision. And understand this, if you decide to walk with me, it very well may be that you might have to turn your back on mother and father, sister and brother, maybe even on your best friend. If you're unwilling to do this for the gospel's sake, then you're unworthy of me. I know this, I understand it, but it doesn't make it any easier. I was lamenting, feeling a little sorry for myself for these lost relationships and such. And it dawned on me, there's been great men that have come into my life of late that God has replaced this loss with. The good book tells us God will never take something from us without giving us a replacement that's better. And that really snapped into focus this morning when I was surrounded by good friends that I would even venture to say some of them are, if they're not already, are becoming brothers. Adopted brothers into a family, the family of God. God has brought these men into my life, brought us together to help one another, to support one another. When I'm feeling weak, to help me to overcome. Hopefully, if one of them is feeling weak, that I can be feeling strong and lift them up and encourage them. And God tells us that a three-cord strong or strand is not easily broken. Meaning that if you take a small piece of paracord, you can snap it pretty easy. But you weave in two or weave in three, and you weave those together, they become exceedingly strong. And that's why community and brotherhood is important. Sometimes, I know many of you are going to be able to relate to this, have had to let go of folks that you've been friends with in the past because of what's happening. That God will bring men into your life that will be even better, closer, more intimate, and to be able to sit around and speak freely and clearly without holding your tongue or feeling like you're going to offend, to be able to share thoughts and ideas, to know that when you say, I'm thinking about going up and fasting and living in the woods for 7 days. Would you join me? And they all in harmony say yes. Have you ever experienced anything like that? God will not take anything from you without replacing it with something greater. We have a new member, Mr. Arnold Homestead. Welcome. Shout out to you, brother. Welcome. Mr. Overton. Always good to see Overton. Overton writes, cured after the 7th dip in the river. I wouldn't have had to send him in for the 8th just for fun. Or I would have sent him in for the 8th just for fun. The 8th is the real test. Old Naaman, when he came up and he was free of leprosy, I have to speculate that he would have gladly went back for an 8th dip, no doubt. Yep, very good. Leave it to Overton to bring the witty and insightful comments. Overton is another example of God bringing someone into my life that's been a great blessing. A great counselor, and not just him. The other warband members, the middlemen, many of some of the most devout and faithful and loyal men that are in the Big Fizz group, so many things that have been a blessing to me. God is showing me that it's okay to let people come into your life and to help you. You don't need to be an island. You don't, let it go. Let other men come and help you with the burden, carry the burden, because that's how the gospel is going to move forward. That's what the body of Christ looks like. It's been hard for me. I have been resisting it. I don't like it. I don't like turning loose of control. But there's a job for me. I don't know exactly what it is, but that job is different than it used to be. I don't have time to do everything. I need people to come in to help me. When we get the blacksmith set up here over the next day or two, if Brian wants to join us for a sit down or maybe even a live stream, and if you would like to have him make you something, I would encourage you, if you're led to do it, to support him. He has a family. He had a job that was secure, and I know everybody's got trouble. I'm not here, trying to drum up sympathy for man. But all I'm saying is that if you want to support that, if you want to help him get a blacksmith business going, if that's what he wants to do, and this is up to him, it's not up to me. I had some tools, and I have a place I can help him out with that, and he would do the same for me. Think about if there's something that you want made. The muzzle not the ox as it treads the grain is what the good book tells us. If a man's willing to put hard labor into something and to create something, and you want to buy it, there's nothing wrong with that. So if there's something that it's within his ability. He said, I'm a little bit rusty. I don't know I could make anything worthy of selling to someone, but I think I could get up to speed in a week or two. I'll make that available, and so think about that. If there's something that you'd like and that Brian could make for you, we can make that happen. So I'll give him the platform and help out with here and point you guys to that, and we'll see where it goes. But I'm looking forward to it. We have a super chat from the Gamer. Shout out to you. Welcome, brother. Thank you for the $5 super chat. And Brave Sig 8. Goodness, a $20 super chat. Goodness, thank you for that. That's very generous of you. Brady. Oh, it's Brady here from Thunder Ranch. Brady, you're one of my favorite people. It's very encouraging to see you here. Man, I'd love to get out there to Thunder Ranch. I reached out to Heidi, or Mrs. W, and I think we kind of lost touch. We were I was wanting to put together a class, and we inquired about doing a couples class like we did before, where you guys, there'd be probably 5 spots for 5 or 6 couples, including Mrs. W and I, where couples go and learn to train and shoot together as husband and wife, girlfriend and boyfriend, that sort of thing. And then Clint and Heidi, I think they came down with something and we kind of kicked down the road. We lost track with them, but you just reminded me, we'll reach out. I'll have Mrs. W. Mrs. W's down. Pray for her, please. She's been down for 2 days, sick in bed, just feeling really bad. Jack and the Sweet Loaf have been taking care of her, as well as myself. So please pray for her speedy recovery. But I'll get back up there and we'll tie back in with Heidi and see if maybe we could make that happen and take a look at the schedule. Thank you for the reminder. But Brady writes, Thunder Ranch, Southern Oregon, the finest weapons training school in the country. The best one I've been to. Hands down. Brady writes, I want to hear how you keep your war band together. Mine has been dissolving and lost our fire after many missed meetings. And we were meeting once a week. Hope you are well. Stay safe. You know what I have found, with that, Brady, I've had the same thing. When we did the first war band and we all got together, it was a pretty good sized group. And what I have noticed is the same thing happened with us. And I think a lot of it was geography. It's too much to ask, I think, for someone to drive after work an hour or to give that much time. I think you need to be really close to one another. The only reason why the war band members were able to get together for the river trip this morning was because one of them came over on the bike and the other one a motor. You know, you could walk over here. We're neighbors. We live in the same community. I think that's the difference right there. I think you have to have a tight-knit community. Members, like, there was some of them that I invited, but they were an hour away. It just wasn't possible. You know, they got to go to work. They got obligations and that sort of thing. It's going to be small. Don't be surprised that it's not going to be maybe as big as you want it to be. You know, you think about, oh, it'd be nice to be able to put together a private army like Abraham did. Not to fight anyone. You know, we're not talking about violence. I'm not advocating violence. This is a spiritual. We're spiritual. We're the army of God, soldiers of God. This is a spiritual battle that we're up against. We're not against harming people. When I say that, people say, well, why you have night vision and guns and body armor, all this stuff? Well, we're going to protect our own, I assure you of that. Even the apostles were armed, several of them with swords. Did Peter not cut off Malchus's ear? You know, he was armed, and there he was in the presence of God. So don't tell me that it's wrong for a Christian to defend themselves. They were in the very presence of the Son of God, and yet they had swords. What's the modern equivalent of the sword for today for Proho? It's the AR-15. We're not carrying around swords. We're going to go up like for like. If someone's going to come at us with violence, then we will meet violence with violence, according to God's will. I'm not a vigilante. It seems that in the media, someone's portrayed anyone who is a responsible gun owner as someone that's unhinged or a dangerous person. We're not the problem. But we will not be walked on. We will defend ours with blood to the death. I've already resolved that. Many of you have as well. I don't focus on that too much. I've got that part covered. The part I don't have covered is the spiritual battle. I'm not strong as I'd like to be with that. Proximity, Brady, I think is important. And also, it might be small. It might be 3. When God sent the disciples out for the first time to go do work, did he send them out in a big, large group? Did he send them out as 12? No, he sent them out in pairs, 2 by 2. Look what he accomplished with 2 men. 2 men walk into a city. They were terrified. That must have been a frightful thing to do. You know, Christians were being hunted at that time. You know, they were marked men. They couldn't walk with impunity. They couldn't just go. Someone could see them and form the priest's guard. They would have been thrown in jail and scourged and probably killed, martyred. And yet they did it. So the group may not need to be as big as we think. But proximity makes it possible. You have to make it reasonable and realistic. And also, not everyone shares our intensity. Not everyone lives and breathes and eats these things. You know, you have to understand that as well. More importantly is that we're on the same page spiritually and that they're absolutely resolved. Go read the story of Gideon. Now, I'm going to tell this story just briefly again, beloved, because there are people here that haven't heard it. I know guys are going to get tired of hearing it over and over again, but this is my channel. If you don't like it, you can leave. When Gideon had to go up, when Gideon was a leader of men and the children of Israel. He got an army together. He's going to go back and take what belonged to them. He was greatly outnumbered. God gave him the mandate. Gideon, I want you to go and to raise this army. Well, he got as many men as possible, several thousand. And he thought, well, God's with us. I have a pretty good number here. We should have a number. You know, he's looking at logistics. You know, he's counting, I have so many of this and so many of this and so many trained soldiers, etc., right? Putting it together, using the wisdom of man, counting the cost. Do I have what it takes to go up against this great army? What did God do? God started taking men away. He said, now go ask all of the men that you have assembled here, ask them, who's afraid to go up against the Assyrians? Raise your hand. Do you know how many men raised their hands? 2/3. 2/3 of Gideon's army raised their hand. I want to go. I'm a farmer. I'm a blacksmith. I'm not into this. God said, tell them to go. Tell them to go back home. Can you imagine what Gideon must have been thinking? He's already stressed. He's already stewing about how he's going to go up against so many with so few. And here God strips away 2/3 of them. 1/3 of the angels abandoned God when Satan accused God of being unjust. Remember that? Do you think there's a parallel there? So here's Gideon's looking at this thinking, now this is terrible. Well, it gets worse. God says, well, let's whittle them down even further. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to stand down there by the stream, by the water source. I want you to have these men walk down there, and I want you to have them drink. And you watch. And the men that go down on their knees and they drink, they lap like an animal, meaning they stick their face in the water. I want you to take them and you have them go to the left and form a group. And the men that go down and kneel and drink with the hand and bring it to their mouth, I want you to put them on the right. Segregate this group. That's what he did. He commanded the men to come down, and those that lapped like an animal went to the left, and those that brought the water to the mouth to the right. How many went to the right? 300. God said, I want you to send those men, the large group, I want you to send them away. So now Gideon's army is down to 300 men. Why this? Was this an arbitrary test of obedience? Why what's the difference? Why does it matter how a man drinks water? Well, I can only speculate, but I have to think that it came down to situational awareness. Where's the most vulnerable spot an animal can be? Where is the African? Where's the gazelle the most watchful? It's when he bows his head to drink like an animal. He can't see. He puts his head down. He can't see his predators. And where do predators hide? They hide at watering holes, because they know everyone's going to have to come there eventually. And that's the best chance you're going to get of killing, or getting a prey, or getting a meal. And the animals know that's where they're the most vulnerable. Could it be, and I'm only speculating here, I don't have a verse for this, could it be that God was showing Gideon, or weeding out the men that had situational awareness? Their two armies are camped close, opposed to each other. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous area. The men that brought the water to their mouth, they knew to keep an eye out, keep a head on a swivel, look around. Where's the threat? You don't want to receive your death wound while you're drinking water. Where the men that drank like an animal, they were completely clueless. No situational awareness whatsoever. Just put your face in there. You don't have any idea what's going on. Is that the type of man that you want to have in a foxhole? Is that the type of man you want to go into battle with? Someone that doesn't even have any clue what's going on. God sent them away. Why? Well, we're going back to the murmuring and complaining. What happens if those men, those cowardly, well, I don't know if they were cowardly. They just didn't have situational awareness. They weren't true and natural soldiers. What happens if those men start complaining and murmuring, sowing dissent in Gideon's army? Pretty soon they would all lose heart and they would all run away, and Gideon wouldn't have anyone at all. God knew this. God knew this. There's a dual meaning purpose for this as well. God also wanted to show Gideon that it was him. It was Yah, God, the one that would deliver them, and not Gideon's army that he had assembled. That never ever would Gideon be able to say, I did a great thing. I defeated the army. I liberated my people. Gideon's got to go up against thousands, hundreds of thousands. So their camels were innumerable. A tremendous war camp, outfitted, equipped, trained, a professional army. Did the children of Israel have a professional army? No, they had been living in subjection to the Assyrians. Gideon goes up with his 300, and God gives him victory. The point being, beloved, is that to finish up with Brady's comment or question, God can do great things with very few, and oftentimes and almost always does, and insists it. For the very reason, knowing that you need to put your faith 1,000% in Him. You'll never be able to do it on your own steam. If you were able to put together a war band of 100 or 1,000 that were motivated, trained, equipped, and absolutely resolved, if you were to have some sort of a great victory in the coming struggle, would you attest that victory to God or to your own cleverness and your own preps? That's all I'm saying. You know, I got to speak to myself, because I could have a tendency to do that. I'm a very prideful person. I would love to be able to take credit for a great military victory. Which one of us among here wouldn't? Who wouldn't like to wear the Congressional Medal of Honor? So it may be that God is wanting us to have a smaller group, and that's something I think that's more attainable. Thanks, Brady. I hope to see you soon. Mr. Brian M., shout out to you. $20 super chat. Good. Thank you for your generosity. Brian says, I took several law enforcement organizations. It took several law enforcement organizations 33 hours to catch an escaped murder suspect in my neighborhood. I slept like an angel last night with my 9mm and a flashlight on the hand last night. Yeah, the common question, the thing that comes through the comments all the time whenever you feature any type of a firearm or anything about being prepared or concealed carry, you know, I always have it. It's always on me. If it's not on me, it's within reach. This generally comes from Europeans. Oh, it must be terrible to live in fear. Must be a terrible thing. I can't imagine living in fear like that, where you always have to have a weapon. I don't live in fear. And I'll tell you what, who else didn't live in fear was Brian M. Brian M. did not live in fear either. He just told us, because he has the ability to do something about it. He's not left to the wills or the whims of a violent man. If that violent man comes in, he's prepared and resolved to do something about it. Therefore, he sleeps the sleep of the just. Who was it that said a firearm should not be comfortable, but comforting? But was it not Mr. Clint Smith himself? A firearm should not be comfortable, but comforting, or something to that effect. If you want good training, I would recommend you go online to thunderranch.com and book accordingly, because once we start talking about this, if we schedule a class, they're going to book up very quickly. It'll be something you do not want to miss out. If this is resonating with you, that you would like to come and have a 2 or 3 day tier 1 training with to learn how to move, shoot, and communicate with your loved one that may not be firearms, that may have not even picked up one, this is starting. It's on easy mode, and you'll be shocked your progression to the end of it. So don't think, oh, I'm not able to do this because my wife, she doesn't like it, and be into it. You're going to be in an environment that's going to be loving, patient, and friendly, and absolutely beyond no judgment whatsoever. You will have one of the greatest experiences of your life that you'll never regret doing. Never regret it. So have those conversations now. If and when this opportunity comes up, it's going to be very, very limited. I said probably 5 couples. Be ready to move on that. Mr. Dr. Prepper. Welcome, brother. Mr. Dr. Prepper writes, what is hard to replace is experience, not people. Many have recently left my life, and I'm having trouble wanting to replace them. I feel too old to create new history with people. Should I try? You should always try. But more so than try is to leave the avenue open. Be open to receive something from a direction that you don't expect it to come. That's what I would do. Be open, have an open and teachable heart, so that God can bring someone into your life, and if he does, that you don't miss that opportunity because you expected it to look a particular way. That's one thing that we need to be careful with. And the same thing goes, beloved, for new doctrines or new understandings. The old things that we were raised with, the old beliefs, the teachings of the pastors, of grandma, grandpa that we were raised with, maybe they were true and just, but maybe they weren't. So don't be dogmatic about it. Be open to receive new things. Be open to receive the fact that maybe changing what you wear could affect your well-being. That changing your diet could help you to receive the Holy Spirit clearer. That getting pure, clean water instead of drinking things full of fluoride and bleach and toxins might help your brain power, in that you might be able to pray or have a closer connection with God. Is your mind not healthier when your body is? Have you been overweight for 10 years? Did you put on 50, 60, 100 pounds from COVID that you don't know what to do with? You know, these things, the church has done us a great service in never really putting focus on this. Well, not all of them, some of them have, but not putting an emphasis on taking care of yourself, eating healthy, not wearing synthetics, get your shoes off, get grounded, get away from the computer, turn the router off at night. Why should you be bombarded? Are you charging your phone on your nightstand? You know, I'm guilty of all these things as well. I didn't know this, but we didn't, God says that when they were ignorant of their transgressions, I winked. Meaning, when they were violating my law, when they were doing things that were angering me, that were preventing me from getting close to them, when they were doing it in their ignorance, I winked. They didn't know better. I'm not holding them to the same accountability as to someone that willfully disobeys. But you have no more excuse. I've been on here talking about these things for a long time. You've been made aware of them. You've been made aware of the fact that you need to get your weight under control. You need to get out and start walking and get yourself into, you don't need to be a Navy SEAL, but you need to be physically fit. Even just for your own self-respect, if that wasn't reason enough, but it helps you to get closer, it helps your spiritual life. Just be open. I think, Dr. Prepper, be open. Don't let it destroy your ability to trust people. Be wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove. We don't need to be foolish Christians like so many in the church that we don't have to be accountable for anything. I just trust God. When it's God's will, how many women sit out there, when a man comes into my life, God, I'm waiting for him to bring me a man, bring me a husband, and yet they eat and they gain weight and they become more argumentative and more disagreeable and they don't take care of themselves. Oh, God will bring me a man. I have no responsibility whatsoever. No, that is not true. You want God to bring you a man? Are you learning to cook? Are you learning to sew? Are you learning to educate your children? Are you looking into homeschool curriculums? Do you know how to wash? Do you know how to support a man? Have you taken a bookkeeping class so that if he has a small business, you will be an asset to him instead of just a massive liability? Are you doing those things? Are you being proactive? Are you preparing yourself for God to bring you something? Or are you just sitting on your hands, being a lazy POS, not doing anything, whining and complaining, why won't God answer my prayer? And that applies to us as well. I've been doing it. I've been sitting around feeling sorry for myself after COVID. I get it. God partners with us, beloved. He partners with us. Yes, he does the heavy lifting. Yes, he knows what we have need of, but we have to meet him there. We have to be, do we not know that our body is a temple? Do we not know that this body that has been given to us does not belong to us? It is a gift from God. And you desecrate the gift of God. You don't take care of it. You eat trash. You smoke weed. You're masturbating to pornography. You're corrupting your mind. Do you not know that you are corrupting the temple of God? And you will give an account for this? I've done it. We've all done it. I'm not condemning you. But I'm pointing out the fact that now you're aware of this. It's time to do something about it. Be a man. Gird up your loins. Dust yourself off. Get yourself out of the mud and have a purpose. Go walkabout a day, for a week, whatever you can. Get some perspective and decide what it is that you want in life. Stop drifting and start swimming. Don't worry about everyone going past you. Don't worry that it's hard. Of course it's going to be hard. Do you think I like getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning and getting in 40-degree water? People tell me in the comments, oh, it's easy. You should try it here. It's not easy. It's an act of, it takes, you have to be a hero to do it. All of us do. It's hard. It's super hard. It's hard to lose weight. It's hard to get up off the couch and stop watching TikTok and walk a mile and get fit. It's hard. I can tell you one thing. I've never once regretted a cold shower or getting in cold water. Never once. Just the opposite. You should have seen the faces on the war band this morning as we, 3.5 minutes, all came out of the water together, and the fist bumping and the camaraderie. It was incredible. I haven't experienced anything like that since I was wildland firefighting, fighting shoulder to shoulder with people for a common cause. I'll never forget it. I can't wait for tomorrow. I wish it could happen twice a day. But I'll be there tomorrow, 8 o'clock, and so will the war band. We'll be there together, and we'll be doing it together, and we'll be there the day after that as well. Lord willing. Beyond that, I don't know. All I know is I'll be there tomorrow, and so will they. Think about that. When you're hurting and you're walking and you're trying to, you decide you're going to lose 50 pounds, 100 pounds, and it's hurting. When you're in a mile and a half, know that we're doing it with you. We're all doing it. We're all hurting. We're all suffering. But imagine what you get to enjoy afterwards. It's not going to happen all at once. There's no quick fix. It's going to take time. It might take a year. It might take 5 years. We have a super chat from UP Blade Sharpening LLC. Shout out to you. Thank you, brother. Goodness, a $20 super chat. It's very generous of you. UP writes, thank you for your down-to-earth. Thank you for your down-to-earth and entertaining content. I listen to your videos, live streams while work, and it always keeps me motivated. God bless you and your families. Well, God bless you. Thank you for your faithfulness. You guys that are super chatting, you guys that are doing super stickers, you guys that are supporting with your time, with your money, you're doing God's work here. This is giving me the ability to have these live streams. It's giving me the ability to provide a place of education that we can have folks come. You know, we can have couples come here and learn something or just be motivated, just to see, to get focus, to see what the mission is, what the purpose is. They're going to go back into their communities, and how many are they going to affect? You're paying into this. You're doing God's work. I really appreciate it. I don't care if it's $1, I don't care if it's $100. I appreciate it very, very much. I appreciate your time. Those of you who are not in a position, this is not mandatory. I'll be here without. It doesn't make any difference. Your time also is valuable. Maybe some might even say more valuable. But some have the ability and the willing to do both. And I want to say thank you for that. Mr. Overton, we have a super chat. Thank you very much. He says, can you even imagine choosing to have absolutely zero say in the outcome when face to face with a violent man? No. And I'll tell you, if you want to see what that's like, that's absolutely a good point. There's a video, some of you have seen it, maybe most of you have seen it, it's circulating around the internet, of a city council meeting. I don't know, there's 5, 7, semicircle, you know how those things are. City council meeting, a man comes in with a handgun who's upset. I think that his wife got fired, she was a school teacher, and he's brandishing, he's waving it around, he's ranting and raving. He's threatening to kill them. These men, you can watch it. You go watch it and see for yourself. The thing speaks for itself. These men are behind a desk, completely defenseless, while this madman, this lunatic, is ranting and raving, threatening to kill all of them. And they're completely defenseless. When I saw that years ago for the first time, that put a very different perspective and an importance to me, of the importance of concealed carry of being in a position where you are never at another man's will. Never, never, never. That was it for me. The times that I was slack, the times that I'll leave it in the car. No more, no more. You go watch that, and that is a video that will demonstrate exactly what our brother Overton is talking to. I will not be in a position to be subject to another man unless it's God's will. Let's preface it with that. I think another habit that we need to get into, beloved, that I have been trying to do, and I will work on this, is that don't be so arrogant in your future plans. When I like to say, I'm going to do thus and so, Lord willing, if it's God's will. I have to make plans. I can't, I can't not plan for things. But let's also understand, I'll go and do this, Lord willing. I think that's a good habit to get into. You don't have to say it. I say it so that you recognize it, so that you adopt it for yourself. But it may be you choose when's the appropriate time to do it. Maybe you say it in your mind, or you just, that's a prayer that goes up, Lord willing. If it's your will, Father. I go on this vacation, I go on this hunting trip, if it's your will, Father. That's the way we need to look at it. Excuse me. We have a super chat from Soul Rack. Shout out to you. Thank you, brother. And Soul Rack writes, can we do a podcast together? It's possible. I wouldn't say no to anyone, provided it's relevant. Here's what I'm going to do. Provided it's not going to be an ambush, for one thing, and that it's relevant to what we're doing here. I'm not opposed to it at all. My time is limited. I will make time as much as possible to do that. So if you want to do that, the best way is to grab one of the moderators, hook up an email. I lean on those guys for this sort of thing to kind of vet what it is. I have no idea. I can't answer that question. I know nothing. I don't know any of the backstory. If they can kind of check into it, do the due diligence, and then they'll reach out to me through Overton and say, hey, this is something we might want to look at. I trust Overton. If he brings something to me, if he tells me something is important, he will contact me. Hey, you need to make a phone call to this person. You do that, I will do that without question. So that's the avenue that we've kind of set up, right or wrong. We have one last super chat. Whew. This has been a energetic, exhausting live stream. I feel really I feel a lot has been drained from me. Mr. Shooter Hemming, $3. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Thank you for your support, and thank you for being a member. We have a member message from Silverstone627, shout out to you, who has a comment. It says, I completely agree about concealed carry. I carry a G19X with an X300. That is the official CCW or personal protective equipment of Proho. Every day. And it might not always be comfortable, but it is always comforting. Isn't that the truth? Yeah, it is always comforting. I do believe that was a maxim from our mentor and teacher, Mr. Clint Smith. He's a tough old guy, goodness. I'll tell you about Clint. There's people that might meet Clint and think that they'll hear his rough language, former combat Marine, decorated, hero. They may see the way he grimaces. You imagine like Clint Eastwood's angry grandfather, then you'd have it, right? You see his grimacing and his direct way of speaking and his salty language, and maybe many pious people would be put off by that and think, why would you associate with a heathen like that? But you don't know anything. What I saw when I went there is I saw him surrounded by a lot of really great men that absolutely loved and doted and adored on this man. Even though he was ranting and swearing and getting after you, and just he puts up with no nonsense. When you see the type of men that he attracts, and when he opens his home, and you see, even though he's hurting and he's crippled, he has no peace till everyone around there is comfortable and taken care of and provided for. He puts other people ahead of himself. He puts his men, his employees, and everyone else ahead of himself. When you see that, it wouldn't matter what he did, it wouldn't matter what he said, because you saw all you needed to see, and you know that right there is an extraordinarily loving and beautiful man. And if you can't see that, then you're no good. You're no good. Our last comment, our last member message, our last one, our newest member is Mrs. Amanda Rainbow. Welcome back. Welcome. We saw you last week. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for catch my breath here. Mondays don't always come out hot out of the chute, but today certainly did. Thank you, beloved, for your time. Thank you for all of you who super chatted, became members, who commented, took the time, gave your important time, your most important resource to me, to sit here and listen to my lunatic ranting. You know, it's a fine line between insanity, the sane and the insane, isn't it? I feel like I ride that tiger daily. But I'll be insane for God, I will. I'm just stupid and stubborn enough to do whatever he tells me. But pray for me. I tell you that we are at the tip of the spear in the cultural war, beloved. We really are. We are absolutely at the tip of the spear, and the eye of Sauron is upon us. I have credible threats on the welfare of my family. 100%, I believe it, from multiple avenues. Am I afraid? I am not. I take precautions, but I need your prayers. The only way I'll be able to have any peace, sleep at night. I have a small little family. I have little kids. I have a little daughter, a 5-year-old that I dote on, and the thought of any harm coming to her is unimaginable. I try not to dwell on it. But there are forces out there, there are people out there that would see our destruction and would have us silenced. But if this is God's will for us to remain, I will, if he wills it, and if he gives me the fortitude, I will be uncompromising, and I will try to maintain the courage of a lion and speak truth here the best I can. I can't say everything I want to say. I think it unwise and foolish to burn everything down. I could burn everything down right now with one word, with one comment or one take. Even though it would be true, but would that be wise to do? If there's a time, if God moves upon me, there's a time to reveal these truths, then I will hope. I'm not going to be so arrogant as to think that, of course, I'll do exactly what he tells me, but I will hope that I have the faith and the courage of David, the courage of Samson, the courage of Gideon and Joseph and Moses and Abraham, and the courage of our Lord, to be unflinching and unwavering and uncompromising. But I'm not going to make any promises. It's difficult enough for me to get through this live stream and get through this day. And that's enough for me. And tomorrow, if it be his will, we'll be here with the same message, hopefully with the power. I'm sick of apologizing for the gospel. I'm sick of weak, ballless, cowardly, so-called Christian leaders. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of people portraying God wrong. I'm sick of people profiting, using the blood of Christ to enrich themselves. I'm sick of the lies. I'm sick of people not knowing who God is. I'm sick of it. I'm just so done and over compromising. I want the hard, true word of God. And I don't care if I don't want to hear it. I don't care if it cuts. I don't care if it undoes me. I don't care if it breaks me down completely. I'm tired of the BS. I'm tired of the lies of the devil. I'm tired of all of it. I was waiting for a man to step up. I was waiting for a church. I was waiting for a pastor. I was waiting for an evangelist to get me in the mood. It's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening for you either. That's why you're here. It ain't gonna happen. It's down to us. If it's gonna happen, we're gonna have to do it ourselves. That's all there is to it. I don't want to do it. I wanted to take my leisure on this beautiful piece of property, do YouTube videos for a couple more years, and then just bow out and enjoy my wife, enjoy my family, enjoy my motorcycles and my toys. That's what I wanted. I worked to put myself in that position. Maybe dabble in something, but on my terms. God's not going to allow me to do that. I could do it, but to miss this opportunity to be on the front line, standing shoulder to shoulder with the saints, wearing the armor of God, fighting at the tip of the spear, that's what I want. And if that means giving all of this up and forsaking everything, then that's what that means. Because what we achieve in this life, what this life has to offer, cannot be compared to the things that the Almighty has in store for those who love Him. The good book tells us, eye has not seen, nor has it entered into the hearts of man the things that I have prepared for those that love me. The best is yet to come, beloved. We just have to put our heads down and embrace, as our fellow veterans say, embrace the big suck. But also knowing that we have a promise of God that He says, I promise you, even though I take things away, I won't take anything away that I don't give back to you better. And He also tells us that even as bad as things are here, if you follow me, if you keep my commandments, if you be faithful, be faithful, be faithful, your life will be better. And in this life will even be better. Plus the promise of eternal life. Goodness, I was just about to shut it down. We have some more, just a couple more. Mr. Simon, goodness, a $27 super chat. Thank you, beloved. Thank you so much. It was very generous of you. No comment. Thank you, Simon. Mr. Dr. Prepper, no better hobbit to inspire us while facing a hobbit. You know that analogy, isn't that true, Dr. Prepper? That analogy? You know, J.R. Tolkien, even though he was a Catholic, you know, J.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis credited J.R. Tolkien with him becoming a man of faith. And in my estimation, I hold no man in higher esteem than C.S. Lewis. No man that I've ever run across. A hobbit. I feel like a weak little hobbit. But do, beloved, please pray for my family. Pray and fast for my family, that God will send His mighty angels to encompass this property, to encompass this valley, a hedge of protection against anyone that would form evil against us. You know, the good book tells us the promise that I've been standing last week or so, that I've been claiming, is that God will not allow any evil that's conspiracy or conspired against it. He will not allow that to thrive, that He will bring it to naught, whether that be government agencies, whether that be individuals that are unhinged, or just haters. You just never know. This is a wide reach. There's a lot of people that are hearing these things, and I've been controversial in the past. I regret a little bit of the things that I've done over the last winter. Went a little hard in different things, and I've made a lot of enemies. But what is done is done. What is said has been said, and I still stand by it. Mr. Philip, I'm just going to go with Mr. Philip. Thank you, brother. We have a super chat from Philip who writes, shout out to stepdads who ignore Wranglerstar's advice and raise boys to be men that wouldn't have a father otherwise. I hear what you say. I've went hard on the single mothers. I have even went so hard as to say that a man who marries a single mother is being cucked by a woman. I've told you in the past that I have been very black and white on these things to my fault. God is not black and white. God meets a man where he is and adjusts situations according to, or adjusts how he interacts according to situations. He's very patient, long-suffering, and kind, and I have not been that in the past, and I will admit that here publicly 100%. But I will defend myself in saying that there are always exceptions. There are great men who have stepped in and filled the role that needed to be filled. And I have not acknowledged that in the past, and I will publicly apologize to that to you and to anyone else that I have offended. I apologize that, and I am truly sorry for that if that hurt your feelings. It was not my intention, and I was not talking about you. What I'm talking about is I'm warning men that there are women that are single mothers that have went out there and slept with Chad, that have 1, 2, 3, 4 baby daddies, that will find a man to take advantage of them, to find a man to provide for them, to will fake love, will fake sincerity, will get them locked into a marriage contract, and then divorce grape them. And now this poor man that went in there thinking he was doing the right thing, like a sheep to the slaughter, is destroyed, his whole life destroyed, while this evil woman now has him on the hook for lifetime alimony and child support for 2 or 3 kids, and there he is in a bad situation. When I warn you, beloved, about the danger of dating and getting involved with single mothers, I'm warning you out of love, and I care for you. I don't want you to fall into this trap. And this is a trap that men have been falling into for eons, for generations. That's what I'm warning you about. Do not trust them. Do not trust them. Do not trust them. They are of the devil, their father. I do not mean to offend. I hope you accept my apology, and I hope you also understand where I'm coming from and what my motivation was. I am a very black and white person. I am taken to passion. I think that's why God can use me. But what I've got to learn, and what my weak spot is I don't have the patience that comes with wisdom. I don't see the big picture sometimes. And that's hopefully the phase that I'm entering into. Hopefully a man in his 50s moving into his 60s can have enough life experience where he realizes that you can't paint every situation with a broad brush, and that it depends with situations. So thank you. And I hope you can accept my apology if I offended you. Mr. Joe, we have a super chat. Joe, welcome back. Joe says, I hiked the PCT. The Pacific Crest Trail runs right through my neck of the woods here. Usually over 20 miles a day with blisters, cold, hot, but there were mountains and friends and incredible insights. There you have it. He went walkabout, hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. Hiking the Appalachian Trail would be a great opportunity for walkabout. Ever since then, I can't stand people complaining. It sounds weak and pathetic. It's true. It's true. And on the micro version, it's absolutely true, but on the micro version of that, the getting in of the cold shower in the morning, the overcoming the fear. You know, anyone who says that it doesn't take a heroic effort to get into this habit of cold showers, of cold water immersion, has never done it, and don't pay any attention to them. They'll come out here, we'll see how brave they are when it's December. You know? And I'm not even saying that I have the courage to do it. I may not. I may go back to the cold showers. I can't make any promises. I can tell you one thing, that I will do it tomorrow, and so will the warband. It's true. But to build on what you're saying, Joe, you learned something, you got an insight, you experienced something that forever changed your life. You were able to overcome that. The blisters, the cold, the sores. It's not a small thing to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, even if you do sections of it. It takes a lot of fortitude. It makes other obstacles seem easier. Jumping in the shower, cold water immersion in the morning makes the obstacles that you come throughout the day seem smaller and insignificant. When you can conquer that, you can conquer many other things that you didn't think possible. Goodness, we have a $38 super chat from our friend, Mr. Olog Dorsdov. Shout out to you. Thank you for your generosity. Goodness. He writes, love the channel and your live stream with General Sam. That was a good time. You know, I have invited General Sam. You know, they've been talking about their last hiking trip turned into a complete debacle. What would our soldier friends say? Piss poor planning equals poor performance, or something to that effect. Well, Sam fell into that trap. We all have. No one's throwing stones here. After that podcast, I told Sam and Poob and Brian, all three of us were together. We talked for probably an hour or so afterwards. I invited them. I said, you guys are going to do a hike. The Pacific Crest Trail runs right through our place. Come up here. We'll set up a base camp right here, right where we're sitting. You guys will come in, set up your tents. We will drive you up there, get you on the trail, pick out a section for you. Tell me how far you want to go. Do you want to do 10? You want to do 20? You want to do 50 miles? You get to the other end. We'll pick you up where the road crosses. We'll come back. We'll be your support. I'll even give you a GPS satellite communicator. So if you have problems, you have somebody gets hurt, you call us. We'll come and do a hot extract, do a rescue. So if you know Sam, remind him of that. I'd love to have him out. Oleg says, Oleg lives in Canada, and as recent events have shown, the government is set on taking away legal gun ownership. They say it is to reduce crime, but I have yet to meet a criminal that follows the law. It's not. We all know it's not about that. They're liars. They are of the devil. Just Trudeau and all of that, they are the worst of men. Yeah, anything that they say is a lie. It's just the opposite. So it got nothing to do with that. That the statistics don't bear it out. It's of course, yeah. It's about control. It's about putting you in a cage. It's about having a very small elite group with everything and a peasant class. They want you in the peasant class. They want all of you in the peasant class. They want me in the peasant class. And the moment I start getting out and waking people up to this, then the bullseye is on me now. May God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers. I pray for you, and we'll pray for you without ceasing. Pray for Mrs. W. for her speedy recovery, and for my children as well. We'll see you guys on tomorrow's stream, Lord willing.